I recognize Ms. McLean for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here today. It is a long day. I'm going to try and make this quick and easy. Mr. Roth, part of your job at Twitter dealt with assessing dis and misinformation, correct?
Yes.
Wonderful. How did you determine what disinformation and misinformation was? What's your criteria for making that decision?
Twitter had established policies covering each of those areas, and I'll take them in turn. We used the term we actually generally didn't use the term disinformation, but we focused on platform manipulation. So behaviors like running inauthentic accounts out of a Russian troll farm, we would address as the behaviors that they are, and we would look for technical signs of that type of manipulation, and we would remove those accounts.
So technical, it was all technical?
On that side of things, yes.
Okay.
When it comes to misinformation, which broadly is a question of the content of tweets,
Yep.
Twitter would establish written policies.
Which was?
I'm sorry?
Which was?
Which policies did Twitter maintain?
Yeah, I mean, I think what the problem with America is we have one set of rules for this team and another set of rules for this team. So we're trying to look at what is the equal playing field. I'm under the assumption that when we use disinformation and we use criteria, the criteria is the same for both sides. So I'm trying to figure out what is the criteria that you had in place to determine which information was misinformation, and did you apply that equally, equitably, inclusively, so to speak, to all sides? So what is the criteria?
Thank you for the question. We used a 3-part test across all of our misinformation policies.
Okay.
The first is whether the tweet advances a claim of fact stated definitively. Not an opinion, not a viewpoint, but a claim of fact stated definitively.
Okay.
The second part of that test is whether the claim of fact is provably false. Not iffy, not maybe, not gray area, definitely, provably by multiple expert sources, false. And then finally, and this is a really important part, we looked for evidence that those claims of fact could cause harm. So if a tweet met all 3 parts of that test, that it's a claim of fact, that it's provably false, and that it's dangerous, Twitter might intervene under its policies. No part of that test is viewpoint-based.
And in your opinion, was that applied to all tweets?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Roth, you're familiar with the reports that the Biden administration was considering establishing a disinformation governance board under the Department of Homeland Security.
I am aware of public reporting about that, yes.
Thank you. And that board was never established, correct?
That's my understanding.
That is correct. It seems to me that the federal government had far more powerful disinformation governance board in its relationship with Twitter. Again, Mr. Roth, question, how often were you meeting with people from the federal government while you were at Twitter? Weekly, daily, monthly?
I would estimate somewhere between weekly and monthly.
Okay. And were you aware that Mr. Baker was also taking these meetings with the federal government as well?
I was not aware of Mr. Baker's calendar, no.
So you had no idea that he was meeting, there was no you just worked in silos?
I mean, Mr. Baker and I were in some of the same meetings together, but no, I did not know the ins and outs of what he was doing.
Okay. What did you understand Mr. Baker's role to be at Twitter besides offering general legal advice?
Mr. Baker supervised the primary legal team that advised the trust and safety team. He was the supervisor of the attorneys who advised my team.
Okay. And how about Ms. Gaddy's role at Twitter besides offering general legal advice?
For the final, I believe, 1.5 years of my tenure at Twitter, Ms. Gaddy was my direct supervisor.
Oh, okay. What was her role? Just to supervise you, to make sure you followed those 3 claims?
Ms. Gaddy supervised what my team's goals and objectives were. She made sure I was doing my job. She made sure that if there was conflict in the workplace, she guided me on how to address that. She did the job of a manager.
Okay. And she oversaw you and the trust to make sure that your 3 claims of fact, provable, false, and would cause harm, she oversaw that?
Yes, Ms. Gaddy ultimately oversaw Twitter's policies and enforcement decisions.
Thank you. Mr. Roth, Navaroli's testimony, she states that her expertise is in media, technology, law, and policy. How often per week did you meet with Ms. Navaroli to discuss these areas while you were both at Twitter?
We did not.
You did not. Okay. Thank you so much.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Chair
Thank you,
reckon.
Mr. Thank you.